Today I am making a tutorial to show how I make my OCs. Base import code will be in the description. For the height, the width will be 5 less than how tall your character is. If you choose not to use the base, I like to have my head up too on the neck. You can choose any head shape, it doesn't matter. For the skin color, I like to choose a tone with what I'm feeling, unless I already have a sketch of the OC already drawn. For the trim, it will be almost the same color or close and brighter. The outline will always be a darker color than the trim and base. Normally I have references that I use when creating OCs. You don't need to have one, but I like to use ones I find at times. Now when you're coloring, it will be nice to know a thing or two about the color wheel. The color wheel is something you usually learn in an art class if you've taken one. Here are a few different ways you can use the colors on the color wheel. For this OC, I am using the analogous color scheme in the photo, colors being orange, yellow and green. For the shade, I recommend using a color that stands out on the hair, usually a bright similar color. Sometimes adjusting the opacity is recommended, the color can be different as well. For the outline, I prefer to have dark outlines that are either a darker color of the hair or a color that contrasts with the hair, my mascot Vex for example. Depending on how I am feeling and how I want the OC to look, I will use the highlights to add another color to the hair that you can't really do without it. Remember that I am referencing the photo in the bottom corner, but be sure to use a color that goes well with the base color if you decide to use this. I also recommend changing the surrounding hair color if you can to match. For this next part, I recommend removing the front hair for a second. Make sure to remember the number of the hair. If you're adding a nose onto your OC like me, I recommend using the face accessories in this section rather than in the accessory section. You're gonna turn the Y scale to 2x and move it all the way up the forehead. Choose a color that will appear on the skin well pigmented, but also that nicely shades the skin as well. You're gonna do the same for face accessory 4, you're gonna choose 196 or something similar. I like to scoot it over a couple of numbers on the face so it gives the face a bit more dimension. Feel free to play around with the adjustments and opacity a bit so it matches your OC. For the eyes, I don't like the thickness of the lashes, so I change the opacity of the outline to 0. Make sure to also scoot the eyes over a bit so they match up with the blush or shading. For the outline colors of the eyes and eyebrows, I like it to be the same as the hair outline, and for the mouth, I like the outline to be the color of the skin. Make sure the eyes are sized to fit the eye shape. For the pupils, make sure the pupil right layer's X scale is 2 less than the pupil's scale and the Y scale is the same as the pupil's scale. If you are using the base code in the description below, they should already be set. And for the highlights, you'll need to automatically adjust them. The right eye highlights X scale should be -3 of the eye highlights and the Y scale should be -0.5 of the eye highlights. When making series OCs, I like to use the basic eyebrows, but when making regular OCs, I like to use the thicker eyebrows since there is more diversity. Make sure to also move the mouth over a bit too. For the nose, I like to use number 6, rotated 65 degrees, and make sure the color of the nose is lighter than the skin color, but not too light that it looks white. I also like to use colorful and vibrant eyes for my OCs as well. If they're not series characters, the base will be a somewhat dark color and the trim will be darker than the base, the shade will be the lightest color and the outline will be the same color as the trim. If you are using flipped eyeballs, it will just be the other way around. Your pupils will either be a light color or a dark color. I like to use a dark color with this pupil design. When selecting clothing, I like to just mix and match and sometimes prefer baggy clothing, such as cargos, shorts or hoodies over long-sleeved shirts. Or sometimes I go on Pinterest and try to find a reference outfit. This was my reference photo when I made my main OC Kisei. When choosing colors, remember the color wheel and what type of color scheme you're going for. Remember, I'm using analogous with green, yellow, and orange. For the shade, I recommend choosing a contrasting bright color that clashes with the color like the one I choose. You don't necessarily have to, but it is recommended. That's it for this tutorial. I am making this OC an adoptable. If you want to adopt, you can find them on my Instagram, link in the description. If you want, feel free to send me some of your OCs, and I will make them in my style.